Hey everyone, Justin here from the BTI infrastructure team. I'm going to be showing you an overview of the hot deploy configuration, and in the second part of this screencast I will be showing you a demonstration of hot deploy in action. If you go to bti360.com/hotdeploy, this is the landing page for all information relating to hot deploy, and I encourage you to check out the videos and read the orange paper here to get an overview of what hot deploy is, and hopefully help this screencast make more sense for you. So let's get started. Here in this presentation, I'm just going to show you a very brief overview of hot deploy before we get into the configuration. And for our demonstration, we have one server, and the IP address of the server is here. And we have, in this one box representing the server, we have an Apache HTTPD load balancer, which I will refer to as just Apache. And then we have 4 Apache Tomcat servers, which I will refer to as Tomcat. So the user makes a request to the Apache load balancer, and the load balancer determines which Tomcat server should handle that request based on your load balancing algorithm. Tomcat server takes the request, processes it, and returns a response back to the Apache load balancer, and that in turn sends the response back to the user. Now the beauty of hot deploy is we're able to take one of these servers offline and perform maintenance on it or deploy new software, and the request can continue to come in and be served by the servers in the cluster here while this server is offline. And then after the server has been patched or the new software has been deployed, you could add this server back into the cluster and do the same for the remaining servers in the cluster, and you've essentially done a live hot deployment and have caused no impact to your users. So for our demonstration, we downloaded Tomcat and Apache from the internet, and we're just going to show you the places in the configuration where we had to make changes that differ from the default configuration. So for Apache, we really only had to change, for Tomcat, we only had to change 4 things, and these were the shutdown port, the HTTP port, AJP port, and JVM route. Here's a table of the values that I used for the 4 Tomcat servers, and here's how the portion of our server XML file had to change to accommodate these changes. You can see where I set the shutdown port, the connector port, the AJP or Apache JServe protocol port, and the JVM route. For Apache, we had to load the modules listed here. The last 3 modules are not strictly required for hot deploy, but they are convenient to have loaded, and I find that they provide useful information. The first 5 here are required, and hot deploy will not work without these modules loaded. So depending on whether you installed Apache from an installer or if you downloaded it from the internet, will dictate whether you need to change the httpd.conf file or in our case this sites enabled /000-default file. So in this file, the important thing to change is we need to add a rewrite engine on command, which instructs the mod rewrite to become active. And then we also include this file that we created called httpd-rewrite.conf, which contains our rewrite rules. Here are the contents of that rewrite file. You can see that there are 4 rewrite rules. These rules are pretty straightforward. They essentially say if the request comes in for /manager1 in this case, then we're going to redirect, that's what this R means, we're going to redirect the user to this IP address and this port and then this context. So what this essentially does is I can go to Apache, make a request for /manager1, and it will redirect me to the appropriate Tomcat server, in this case Tomcat server 1, and send me to the Tomcat manager page. And the L just says this is the last rule, so stop processing the rules if this rule matches. The final configuration change we need to make for Apache is to set up the AJP port and the JVM route to match the way that we configured our Tomcat servers. And before I get into that part, here are some proxy pass directives, which essentially, because they have the exclamation point at the end, say do not proxy requests that match these things, which are /balancer. We don't want to proxy the balancer page because we want to have Apache handle that request. And these 4 pages here, manager 1 through 4, we don't want to be proxied to the Tomcat server either, because we're going to be redirecting those requests as you saw in the rewrite file a few minutes ago. So the important line that most of our requests will get hit by and therefore proxied to the backend Tomcat servers is this proxy pass / line here. So if our request hasn't been matched by any of these directives up here, they will get hit by this directive, which says proxy the request to this balancer called app_cluster. This name, you can call it whatever you want. It just has to match what you define down here in this directive. So for us, the important thing to note here is you have the 4 balancer members, which represent our 4 Tomcat servers using the AJP protocol, and here are the ports that correspond to the 4 Tomcat servers we set up earlier, and the respective JVM routes for those 4 servers as well. Now also, because we are proxying the requests from Apache to the backend Tomcat servers, we also need to allow the response from the Tomcat servers to come back to the Apache load balancer so that it can be sent back to the user. So these proxy pass reverse directives allow the response to come from Tomcat back to Apache. That is it for the configuration portion of Apache and Tomcat, and I look forward to seeing you back in part 2, where we will do a demonstration of hot deploy and show you what all the configuration allows us to do.